you. Please be seated. Yes. Honorable members, before we proceed with today's business, I wish to make the following announcement. The mother of Mr. Masibulele Xhaso, Secretary to the National Assembly, passed away yesterday. Mr. Xhaso's mother was 79 years old and had been ill for some time. The funeral will be held in Centane in the Eastern Cape this coming weekend. Details of the funeral will be communicated as they become available. On behalf of the presiding officers and the National Assembly, we would like to convey our deepest condolences to the Xhaso family during this time of bereavement. I wish to also say that a delegation will be representing Parliament at the house of Mr. Xhaso this afternoon, shortly after the sitting. The Secretary will read the order of the day.
Resumption of debate on vote number 1, reply by President.
The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Ba. Honorable Member Singh, you seem to be an orphan today. You are on your own.
Just for now, my leader will be here soon, Mr. President.
Honorable Speaker, Deputy President, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, honorable members of the House, thank you for the opportunity to respond to the 2017 Presidency Budget Vote 1 debate. I wish to thank all honorable members for the contributions to the debate. Today is International Children's Day. On this day, we reflect on what is being done and what else we should do to protect, mold, and provide space for our children to grow into successful adults and citizens of the Republic. From 1994, as we were reminded by the Deputy Chief Whip, the democratic government has concentrated on making life better for our children, especially those from poor households. We started then with the provision of free health care for children from birth to 6 years. There is a host of other services provided for children in the country, from social grants to welfare services, free basic education to those who cannot pay, free meals at school, and subsidized early childhood development centers for almost 1 million children. We celebrate these achievements of our country today, while also noting the work we must still do to improve the lives of children in informal settlements and rural areas of our country. We remain fully aware of our responsibilities in this regard as a caring government. In fact, South Africans in general live a better life now, as outlined by many honorable members in their speeches yesterday. They now live longer due to improved medical care. There is improved and expanded access to basic and higher education. There is expanded access to water, electricity, housing, and many other basic services. We adopted the National Development Plan in 2012 as the socio-economic development blueprint to provide a roadmap for further work that we need to do as we build a better South Africa. Honorable Shenge, the NDP is definitely being implemented by all government departments. As outlined by Minister Hadebe, the goals and targets of the NDP have been integrated into government's medium-term strategic framework for the electoral period 2014 to 2019. So it is being implemented. We did not want to implement it as a standalone. We have infused it to the work of government, all departments. So that way, we can actually see all its elements being implemented. So I thought I should help to relieve your concern that indeed it is being implemented. Each government department has a program of action that is driven from the NDP. Thank you very much, Ndabezitha. We need to improve the manner in which we communicate the implementation of the program of action and ensure that our communication clearly links the programs to the NDP more explicitly so that you can, without difficulties, realize where they are and what is happening. Honorable Shenge, you also sought clarity on radical socio-economic transformation. This approach is a decision of the 53rd National Conference of the ANC, which took place in Mangaung in 2012. So it is a policy of the ruling party. It is the policy on which, among others, the voters voted the ruling party into government. It's nothing that has come from somebody's head. It's policy. We met under the theme, Unity in Action Towards Socio-Economic Freedom. A key resolution of the conference was that the second phase in our transition from apartheid colonialism to a national democratic society would be characterized by more radical policies and decisive action to effect socio-economic and continued democratic transformation. So, people who are still doubting about this, they can read the resolutions. They can't seek for more clarity. The resolutions are very clear. And our duty as the government of the ANC is to implement that. In fact, we are late in implementing it. We ought to have implemented it in 2013, immediately. But because we want people to, you know, ihlale izinze, izwakale kahle bayikhumbule, ingakho sesiyifaka manje. We put practical meaning to this program this year in the January 8 statement of the ANC with a direct call for radical socio-economic transformation in general and broadly, and an added emphasis on radical economic transformation. We identified economic growth, accelerated radical socio-economic transformation, land reform and redistribution, the funding of higher education, fighting crime and corruption, as well as building the capacity of the state as the key priorities of the ANC in the current year, which automatically makes them key priorities of government. The ANC NEC Lekgotla in January emerged with a definition of radical socio-economic transformation. To clarify the issue, the ANC said, and I love it like I love the Bible, absolutely. And I talk about it all the time like a pastor talking to the Bible every Sunday. The ANC said it refers to, quote, a fundamental change in the structure, systems, institutions, and patterns of ownership and control of the economy in favor of all South Africans, because people miss this, of all South Africans, especially the poor, the majority of whom are African and female. Very clear. The reason why this is important, Ndabezitha, is because if we generalize a lot, anyone can generalize. I think we've tried, because we wanted people to have this thinking, we are now saying exactly what is it that we need to do. Firstly, I think everybody agrees that the structure of the South African economy was racially based. It excluded the majority. And that's what it is. And the system was based on that one. Because the system had to help that policy of the apartheid to be implemented, as well as the institutions that were there. The institutions that we have tried to build now, if we have not interfered with the structure and the system, they are still based on a foundation that is wrong. You can't sit and not correct that. Patterns of ownership. We can't even talk about that we are owning anything. The ownership of the economy of this country still in the same hands, because it is based on the structure. and control of the economy, therefore, is in favor, and the control of the economy, therefore, is in favor of the minority. That's what it is. We either accept that reality and do nothing, and there will be no reason why we fought for freedom if we do so. But the freedom is not yet complete. This is just a straightforward line, truth. We want a kind of an economy that all South Africans benefit from. Not others benefit more, others less, others not at all. Especially the poor. The majority of whom, the poor, the majority of whom are African and female. What a gospel truth we have. That's what it is. And I know you would not disagree with this truth as a Christian. This is the definition that was provided in the State of the Nation address in February. Because we wanted the country to realize where we come from with this definition. Is the correct one, justified, blessed, the truth, the only truth about the South African situation with regard to the economy. Let me emphasize that while economic emancipation is an imperative, our approach is much broader and seeks socio-economic transformation, covering both the social and economic aspects of our lives. The economic component of our program has gained popularity in the public domain and is now known as you know, today stories are told through acronyms, RET. RET. Robust economic transformation. Because it's a matter that we need to talk about. And South Africans should honestly accept this reality. Because it is. Because if we don't deal with these matters, I can tell you, we will stay for a long time with protests, people protest, and we who have everything wondering why are they protesting? There are no services to them. Why is there services to the neighbors? They've got no jobs. The question of us not having jobs, in fact, is a man-made problem in South Africa. It's a man-made, it's not a natural problem. It's a man-made. If you take the land of other people, take their rights, take everything, it's you, it's not somebody else above us. It's a man-made problem. And it needs men to correct it. That's what we are doing. If that makes other people feel bad about it, it's just unfortunate. Absolutely unfortunate. I thought I should help you because if need be, Sheng, I can come to the IFP to help you in the IFP to explain this. I will be ready to do so.
Point of order, madam. I think I should
Just a point of
congratulate
order.
I think I should congratulate you for catching such big fish.
Thank you, Ndabezit, Sheng. Honorable Mayor, I heard others calling him DJ. DJ who do more dancing than the music. And yesterday, I'm just as sorry that he's not here because he has become my friend. He loves laughing, I love laughing. And I was going to say to him, let us form a singing group. I can sing, he can dance. Then we can go together. This friend of mine, his favorite government program, the 9-point plan, encompasses the levers that the government is using to ignite growth and the sectors in which we believe we can achieve meaningful economic transformation. And that's why the 9-point plan is absolutely crucial. Now, I'm happy because he loves it. He wants to be clarified all the time. Do you remember them? What do they say? So he's very taken up with this notion of 9-point plan. But unfortunately, he's not here. I don't know because I just came. I saw these chairs being empty. Maybe I will hear later why they are not here. These areas include energy, manufacturing, transport, telecommunications, water, tourism, the ocean economy, SMME development, mining, agriculture, and the Industrial Policy Action Plan. Therefore, the 9-point plan is our instrument that we are using to achieve radical socio-economic transformation. Honorable Fabs, indeed, there can be no sustainability in any economy if the majority is excluded. As stated in the State of the Nation address, only 10% of the top 100 companies on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange are owned by Black South Africans, directly achieved principally through the Black Empowerment Codes. According to the National Empowerment Fund, with regards to management, the 17th Employment Equity Report released last month once again pointed to the painfully slow pace of transformation in the South African labor market. 68.5% of the top management positions are occupied by the white group. Honorable Member, Baba Groenewald, fanele uzwe kahle lezi zinto as we go on, ngoba uthe kufanele ngikuphendule namhlanje. Africans are at 14.4%, Indians 8.9%, Coloureds 4.9%, and foreign nationals 3.4%. 58% of the positions in senior management are occupied by the white group. Africans, 22.1%, Indians, 10.6%, Coloureds, 7.7%, and foreign nationals, 1.4%. Njengohulumeni sifuna ukuphathwa komnotho kuguquke. Uguquke ngokushesha okukhulu. Kuyasikhathaza ukuthi umnotho usahleli ezandleni zabamhlophe namanje. Sithi ngalolu hlelo lokuguqulwa komnotho ngendlela ejulile nesheshayo akunikezwe abantu abamnyama amathuba okuba nezimboni nabo futhi babe namabhizinisi amakhulu. Sifuna banikezwe izikhundla ezinkulu zokuphatha ezimbonini baphathe kubonakale ukuthi inkululeko ifikile ezweni. Akuyekwe ukubacwasa ngebala ezimbonini abamnyama. Kufanele bahlonishwe kubonakale ukuthi ibona abaningi ezweni. Kufanele babe baningi nasezikhundleni kanye nokuba ngosozimboni. Sifuna nosomabhizinisi abancane emalokishini nasezindaweni zasemakhaya bathole ukuxhaswa uhulumeni. Iminyango kahulumeni isithunyiwe ihhovisi likamongameli ukuba yenze konke lokho kwenzeke kuze ziguquke izimpilo zabantu. Uma singakwenzanga lokho kuzoba umthwalo onzima kakhulu ukuguquka kwempilo zabantu. Honorable Kubisa and Honorable Swart, we agree with you that there should be an inquiry into the third state capture by the business community. The state capture is a big thing. It's not a small thing. It's a big thing. I think we now all agree we need to do it. And we can't pick and choose. We must do it generally. And that is going to help us because we are going to stop depending on rumors and allegations, but we will depend on the facts. So that people don't, as they were doing yesterday, pile allegation after allegation when they have no facts. Just because they've been reading newspapers. Other parties even use the newspaper articles to go to court and say you need to have a case on hearsay. Honorable Mafu and Honorable Memezi outlined accurately the work of the Presidency in leading and coordinating government work and in galvanizing society towards a common goal of building a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous society. The Izimbizo and presidential Siyahlola programs, which are also supported by Honorable Gallo, are indeed important instruments as They enable us to meet our people regularly and obtain feedback on the work of government. The focus currently is the fight against crime, given the urgency and suffering of communities. We will soon visit Lusikisiki village in the Eastern Cape, where people live in fear of a vicious criminal gang called Amavondwe. Amavondo, not Amavondwe. Amavondo. Amavondwe. No, the senior citizen is correcting. Says Amavondwe. Agreed. Fine. Who terrorize the community. I visited the communities of Kwamhlabuyalingana in KZN, Soshanguve in Tswana, as well as Elsie's River and Nyanga here in Cape Town, who are affected by crime. There are others too that we have not yet reached. The police can deal with crime and arrest perpetrators. However, society itself must play a role in fighting this wanton criminality and in preventing these crimes. We cannot make this a responsibility of the police alone. Serious crimes include violence against women, which honorable members have strongly condemned in the debate. Honorable Shabangu made a call to action to members of parliament to actively fight gender-based violence in their communities and constituencies. Indeed, we all have a role to play in fighting this horrible scourge, the crime. Honorable Mutau, South Africa is not on the road to being a failed state. It's not true. Unless we are living in another country called South Africa, we don't know. You need to free yourself from your party's propaganda and honestly track the progress that South Africa is making. You will feel proud to have been a leader during this period in our democratic transition. If you left the propaganda world and came to truthful world. By the way, this is part of the problem. You have people who are elected by the people to be in parliament, to debate, to make laws, but who decide not to come to parliament. But they are here to say whatever they want. They don't even want to hear the response. They don't want to hear the response to the debate and questions. That tells you whatever you say, they are not listening. They are hooked and trapped by their own propaganda world, which they believe exists. We are here, we are answering, they are not here. What are the voters, people who voted for them, saying? They were sent here to come and work. They choose, they pick and choose. We are not here, we are here. And even in the debate, by the way, they can't argue. They can't argue. All they do is to just hurl insults. Oh, God. I met a former president in Africa recently who said, what is happening in your parliament? We in Africa are pained by what is happening because it describes us as African as something out of this world. But we don't realize that because we are dragged by our propaganda, some people, unfortunately. uThixo abe nabo bandla. Honorable Gallo, you raise concern that the presidency may be fashioning itself as a mini regulator of other departments. The presidency provides strategic leadership and coordination of the work of government, and it also supervises and monitors the work of departments. Therefore, if it sounds like a regulator, it would be correct. That is his job, to supervise government. Honorable Godi, we have noted your concerns about the need to improve the work of the Anti-Corruption Interministerial Committee and law enforcement agencies. We also take seriously your concerns about the financial management challenges in government departments. We will continue to monitor these shortcomings at the level of cabinet to find solutions. A key aspect is to ensure that officials managing public finances are qualified and experienced, and also to ensure adequate internal controls. Honorable Speaker, I'm delighted that the Democratic Alliance MPs have been reading speeches of President Oliver Tambo lately. What a good thing. This means that our OR Tambo centenary campaign is effective. Absolutely. The forebears of the DA regarded OR as a terrorist and a danger to South Africa. Now that their young ones are changing, South Africa is changing. Yamnandi lenda. We therefore trust that the sudden discovery and embracing of OR Tambo is not opportunism aimed at diluting his legacy or distorting it to support what he did not stand for, which is the protection of the privileged, of the privileges of a few. He did not stand for that. And if people today, they stand for that, but they see the light out of his work and they are turning, this South Africa is going to be a wonderful country. I've never seen a party in my life. My life is not very long, it's just a few decades. An opposition that praises the opposition. It's very funny. Supposed to be opposing, they are praising. Instead of telling us about their policies, busy quoting ANC against ANC. There's ANC of Tambo. At first it was ANC of Mandela, and the current one is not ANC. Now Tambo, They've got no ancestor to quote. You must quote ANC to ANC. Eh. Ah la la. Ndala lo mbutho. Even opposition icaphuna kuwo to make their point against the very organization. Quite a strange phenomenon. But we are happy that i-campaign iyasebenza. We have seen this happening with President Nelson Mandela, where the opposition has created its own Mandela, who was never the founding commander of Umkhonto weSizwe. And definitely not the Mandela who warned the public about the DA in 2002. They want to forget that and sort of own Mandela. This Mandela was wonderful, this ANC is very bad. When Mandela was still alive, Mandela was bad with his ANC. He leaves us, he's very good, but not the ANC. Been quoting him too much. Let us now quote Tambo. And stand here, we are a leader of the opposition. Oh, I wish Tambo lapha khona uyaphenduka. Uma kunje. Where are the Verfoods and others? Quote them. What's your problem? And I'm happy because I'm picking a Shengez here. He knows what I'm talking about. Compatriots, we begin Youth Month today, in which the whole country will honor and celebrate our young people who are the leaders of the future. We will honor the contribution of our youth to the attainment of freedom and also reflect on what else we must do to prepare a better future for them, working with them. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with leaders of various youth formations in the Presidential Youth Working Group. I reported yesterday on the good work done by this working group, which is coordinated by a committee of deputy ministers led by the deputy minister in the presidency, the Honorable Manamela. Uphi lo mfana? Yebo nanguya lo mfana olida i-youth. Umzwile nje nayizolo ukuthi ayi-youth le.
Is it parliamentary to call an honorable member umfana?
Uma kukhuluma abantu abadala kulungile ukuthi basibize abafana.
Particularly if it is praising, you know, the young man. We will be celebrating achievements of our young people. The Deputy President showcased some of the talented young people who are excelling in various fields after hard work yesterday. I joined the Deputy President in appealing to the private sector to adopt our training and vocational education colleges, and also to absorb our graduates from these colleges and universities for internships and learnerships. I think business would be playing an important role to do so. And I'm happy that this was said by the DP, because he has an experience in the business world. He knows they can do it. Absolutely. Yes. Fellow South Africans, Honorable Manamela's exposition yesterday was a strong call for the DA to break free from colonialism and from developing and implementing policies that seek to maintain the colonial and apartheid set up in a liberated, non-racial South Africa. That call was very strong, and I think it must have penetrated the minds. Such actions delay the socio-economic transformation of our country. They also derail the advance towards true national reconciliation in our beautiful country. Honorable members, let me join the Deputy President once again in wishing our Muslim compatriots well during the holy month of Ramadan. They are part of the diverse and multicultural society that makes South Africa vibrant and unique. Madam Speaker, we pride ourselves of the fact that media freedom is enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic. South Africa is thus the perfect venue for the 69th World News Media Congress that will take place in Durban next week from the 7th to the 9th of June. If South Africa was the country that is described by the DA, I don't know why would such important people think they can come here and hold a conference and learn a lot about media in South Africa. Media is free here. Nobody harasses it. They can say everything. It's real freedom here. That's why they choose to come here. Indeed, South Africa looks forward to hosting the publishers, editors, and the other practitioners from all over the world to our shores. We wish them all of the best with their deliberations on how to take the global fourth estate forward. Honorable Groenewald, you asked me yesterday that I must help you to tell you why I seem to be hating whites. If I remember you well. And I must tell you why today. I must answer the question. You insisted. Now, you are a South African. I warned you some time ago that let us not discuss the subject. It's better, in my view, because it's a subject that touches serious issues in this country. I'm a child of the ANC. Despite my history, the ANC taught me non-racialism, that I must be never racist, and I will never be racist. But that does not mean I must not correct the wrongs that were done in South Africa. Otherwise, I would not have been a freedom fighter. Otherwise, I would not have been in the ANC with its correct policies to help. ANC says, let us deal with things to help unite the people of this country. Reconcile, forget about the past. That's what I believe in. But there is a reality in South Africa that between us, there are those who robbed others of their own possessions and made it theirs, and left others to be poor. All I'm saying, let us correct that. Not by fighting. We fought many years ago. Not by fighting, by talking. And I've emphasized, even if when I say the land must be corrected, and I've emphasized very deliberately within the Constitution and the law. I've never said anything that makes people to want to fight. Within the Constitution and the law. Some time ago, I was asked, are you going to do it the Zimbabwean ways? I said, no, this is not Zimbabwe, it's South Africa. We are going to do it within the law, within the Constitution. I've gone further to say, if we think we don't have a solution within that ambit, we will discuss. If we think we need to change the law or amend the law or the Constitution, it will come as a result of the discussion. Where is war there? Why do you think I hate the whites if I say so? You cannot have a situation where there are people who have got land, part of which they don't know what to do with, whilst other people have got absolutely not a single hectare. It must be corrected by the South Africans. What do I want the whites to do? Is to say, let us sit down and solve this problem and find an amicable situation wherein there will be no South African who has nothing when others have everything. That is the issue. And that is my position. That is the position of the African National Congress. It's as simple as that. You must look at the ANC as a very important organization that helped us to avert a calamity in this country by negotiating and saying, let us forget the past. That is absolutely true. If you think we need to discuss these matters, I think we are open to do so with an aim to find a solution. We did not, for an example, want to stick to those points in the negotiation so that negotiations don't succeed. It was important to solve the political issues, but we have to solve the economic issues. We can't avoid it. Otherwise, I will be dishonest. I'm not talking about myself, the Zumas who suffered, who were removed from the great town, rich area across the Tugela River. I'm not even going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what can we do so that people can have, you know, I always say to let us not discuss it, but you love it. You love it to come here to say, Zuma, here's the whites. I don't. I've got whites who are my comrades that I trust. I've worked with them. I've been in the trenches with them. The whites, I've been commanded by the whites in the war for freedom. I can't have that. I'm a Democrat in the true sense of the word. And therefore to have no fear. And if at all there was anyone who says, let us kill the whites, I will be among those who will protect and fight to defend you. That's a reality as a South African. So don't misinterpret my intentions and the intentions of my organization. It's as clear as anything. We want all South Africans to benefit from the wealth of this country. All of them. Irrespective of color or history. You know, one of our leaders, Luthuli, when he talked about us to unite, he says, we must not look at the history as to where others came from. We are now here in South Africa. Let us solve our problems here. And that's what we need to do. It's not right. I'm just responding to you because it's not correct to put the situation as if there are people here who says, hey, even people who say, let us grab the land by force, we don't agree with. Well, that is not right. We are in a civilized country. We have accepted the fact that we had problems, let us correct them. What we cannot do is not to correct the problems, because that will cause a problem in future. That's what we must be discussing. And we are ready if there was a need for it. But we believe we have instruments in South Africa. Our constitution, our laws, this very parliament. We must be able to resolve those. We can't say when other people are saying we are dying and they are dying of starvation, we don't mind. No, we can't say so. So, if we need to talk a little bit more outside, I'm ready. And I could help.
Agbare Young Speaker, can I say to the Honourable President, I accept the invitation, we can talk.
I'm sure the Honorable President is asking you precisely so he can get that answer.
Absolutely agreed. Agreed, Honorable Kuneva. Thank you very much. Because we must reason, we must be realistic, we must deal with our problems. Thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to thank Parliament for the successful departmental budget vote debates. They've been debated for weeks and weeks, all departments, that have now been concluded with vote 1, the presidency. And I want to tell you, fact that there will be those members of parliament who say we don't support this vote, whilst others are saying we support it. That's democracy. Can't be hated for it. Those are your views. The question is it the majority that says we don't support or the minority? Because democracy's main kind of element is the majority that talks and wins the debate. So I'm very happy that we have given ourselves time to discuss all these votes as we conclude with vote 1 today. Work will now continue towards the goal of building a better South Africa and a better life for our people. When you discuss and act within the rules of democracy, it is always a wonderful. I can tell you, there are many countries that look at us discussing here who have said they have learned a lot from this parliament. That's why they believe they have a right to complain when they think this parliament is not behaving accordingly. In fact, they do say, don't spoil your work that we have done. From the time we negotiated and solved a problem that many in the world believed would never be solved, the apartheid problem, and thereafter brought a constitutional democracy. And of course, all systems have got their own kind of difficulties as you go. You learn, you correct, you move. I think our behavior in Parliament has been taken to the extreme. And I think perhaps it's the third time that I'm repeating this. I think this Parliament must help itself. Have the rules, implement the rules. You will never go wrong. If you leave some unbecoming behavior, I saw some people here hitting people with helmets. Why do you allow people to come to parliament with helmets, which you have seen they use them to beat up other people here? You need to correct those so that you remain a shining star as this modern constitutional parliament. Let me wish all our children a happy International Children's Day. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I thank the Honorable the President. Honorable members, the last item on the order paper is a debate on an urgent matter of national public importance in terms of Rule 130 in the name of an honorable member who is not here, the Honorable Mbhele, on the scourge of violence against women and children. I see the Honorable Mbhele walking in. Honorable Mbhele.
Ngiyabonga
Speaker.
Somlomo.
Speaker, order.
Order, honorable members, can we all settle down? There's a point of order, Honorable Chauke.
Speaker,
Please, Honorable Mbhele, take your seat.
Speaker, I will need a clarity here. That is it parliamentary that when the state president of the country addresses parliament, members decide to go and sit outside in the TV room and watch him in the TV room?
Honorable members, to the extent that I know the rules, there is nothing in the rules that prevents an honorable member from being outside and then walking in. It's just a great pity because they've missed out a lot. Please proceed, Honorable Mbhele.
Ngiyabonga Somlomo. This debate today is important because women and children in our country
Order, Chair. Order, Speaker.
deserve to live in safe
Order,
homes
Speaker.
and to be able to
Honorable
walk.
Mbhele, please take your seat. There's a point of order over there.
Chair,
What are you rising on, Honorable Member?
Chair, is it parliamentary for Aaron Mbhele to speak on a podium without signing in that is he present in the House?
Honorable Member, please allow Honorable Mbhele to proceed.
Women and children in our country deserve to live in safe homes and to be able to walk in safe streets. This debate is important because gender-based violence and domestic abuse is a violation of women's rights, and it is a failure of the ANC government to protect women and children. But Speaker, this debate is important particularly to me because this scourge in our society is one that I take deeply personally. My mother's own passing 6.5 years ago in a brutal murder means that I have directly and deeply felt the trauma that the evil of this femicide epidemic wreaks on our nation and on our families. On Saturday, 20 May, I attended the #NotInMyName march in Pretoria, along with our Shadow Minister of Police, Minister of Justice, the Honorable Breitenbach. The march was an important expression of outrage from men to other men about the unacceptable violence that is perpetrated against women and children on a daily basis. It is high time that combating gender-based violence is shifted from simply lamenting and condemning it to men also playing the key role of calling each other out and holding each other accountable for sexist, misogynistic, and otherwise generally patriarchal attitudes that enable violence against women. We must seek to deter this scourge in two ways. Firstly, through a more effective criminal justice system that will not let perpetrators get away with it. And secondly, also through building new social norms of gender equality and stigmatizing violence against women and children, as well as the men who commit it. This means taking on and challenging centuries, if not millennia, of deeply entrenched social codes and conventions. It means taking on and challenging the manner in which these social codes and conventions are transmitted intergenerationally and how they are internally conditioned in our psyches and worldviews. It also means facing up to the ways in which patriarchal ideas are held and reinforced by both men and women. And here I would throw a side eye to the ANC Women's League for their failure to stand up for women adequately from their platform. It also means confronting all dimensions of how these ideas and attitudes manifest, including as hate crimes against lesbian women and transgender people. This carries the implication that activism against violence directed at women and dismantling patriarchy necessarily entails also a fight against homophobia and transphobia. There is no doubt that the scourge is made worse by ineffective policing and police indifference to many cases and victims. In this debate, we need the police minister, the justice minister, and the Minister of Women in the Presidency to account for the failures of the organs of states that are meant to play a key role to keep safe the most vulnerable in our society. Ministers Mbalula, Masuta, and Shabangu must here and today tell the nation the government's plan to make our country safe for all women. Now, I note that of those three ministers, only Minister Mbalula, I believe, is on the speaker's list, and it is an indictment on the other ministers whose portfolios are key to addressing this scourge that they could not bother to make their voice heard and to account and tell us the plan. The police in tackling the scourge effectively have one hand tied behind their back when trying to combat violence against women and children through swift quality investigations that secure high conviction rates. While the police cannot by themselves prevent domestic violence or rape, effective policing can ensure that justice is served for every victim and that every perpetrator can be made an example of. The pity, Speaker, is that the last 23 years of ANC governance have shown that the ANC is incapable of making our country safe for all women. That is why the time for change is ripe. That change will come through a new government led by the DA from 2019.
Point of order, Speaker.
When we will demonstrate our resolve to bring
Honorable
safe streets.
Mbhele, please take your seat. There's a point of order.
May I just have your indulgence because the Speaker is actually misleading the country. He keeps on quoting things that actually are not appropriate in terms of gender-based violence, including participation of the police,
Madam
not
Speaker,
making reference to the
Member,
right statutes.
When you say a person is misleading, it's not unparliamentary unless he is deliberately misleading. Honorable, and it's not a point of order. Honorable Mbhele, please finish your speech. You have 7 seconds left.
We will demonstrate our resolve to bring safe streets and safe homes to all communities where everyone, especially women and children, can live with true freedom, Woza 2019, woza.
The Honorable, the Minister of Home Affairs.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, distinguished guests, comrades. This august House is holding a discussion on gruesome victimization of children and women on the first day of our Youth Month. Given the manner in which child abuse has become more prevalent in our society, Save the Children International Organization has called it a pandemic. Honorable members, heroin crimes against women and children are a shame of our times. It has become almost an expectation that during the annual Child Protection Week and 16 days of activism, the public get to know about the most gruesome acts of violence against women and children. One life lost is one too many. Our society has, over the past few weeks, been entrenched psychologically in pain and suffering emanating from the description of cases that this country is dealing with. Honorable members, I want to remind all of us that the cost of gender-based violence in society is too high. Families and friends who live with the survivors of these brutal acts often carry the pain and psychologically and physically over a long period of times. Sometimes we see generational scars. Gender-based violence negatively affects also the country's GDP because it is well established that long-term consequences of victimization affect productivity. We also pay heavily in terms of promoting survivors' well-being and holding perpetrators accountable. The cost goes towards law enforcement, health, lost labor, high level of school dropout, children survivors, developmental milestones, and general progress in development. Honorable members, I want to remind you of what O.R. Tambo's principles are on women's emancipation. Since His Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, has declared this year the year of OR, it is therefore fitting that we be reminded of his principles on women's participation and emancipation. Comrade OR reminded us at the concluding session of the conference of the women's section of the ANC as far back as 1981 in Angola that the mobilization of women is the task not only of women alone or of men alone, but of all of us, men and women alike. So to deal with this scourge, it's a revolution within a revolution we're in of transforming our society. As the President had just said, that we have a huge responsibility to carry forward socio-cultural transformation of our society. We have a constitution that we talk about all the time, and I think we should find solace in knowing that women and children's rights are protected in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which is the supreme law in the country. Section 9 talks to equality, the equality clause. It says, the equality clause calls for the right to equal protection and benefit of the law and expressly forbids unfair gender-based discrimination. And again, talking to our people in our communities, it's important to trust and believe in the efforts of those who led the drafting of the Constitution. In this instance is the ANC-led government. Section 12 of the Constitution provides for the freedom and security of the person, including freedom from violence against women. So we are in this revolution being guided also by the courage and resilience of our women over a long period of time. I will trace just a few incidences which we must always be conscious of as we look at how to tackle the challenge we have today of gender-based violence. We know the courage of our women as to how they mobilize against the Natives Land Act as far back as 1913. Incredible women of substance, such as Comrade Charlotte Maxeke, who was an activist, a teacher, politician, and founder of the Bantu Women's League then, which today is the powerful organization within the continent and the oldest, known as the Women's League. This was not only the progressive resistance of women at the time, but also they went on to show their detest of past laws and the manner in which they sought to restrict the movement of women. The famous Women's March is one incident which should make our people believe that with determination we will overcome. We know that women struggled side by side by men. It was in 1955 that Margaret Gazo suggested that let's go to the Pretoria ourselves and protest to the government against laws that oppress us. The success of mobilizing 20,000 women in 1956 is one area we should encourage and make us more determined, knowing that we've fought bigger battles in the past. At the end of that march, it was men who praised the resilience, courage, and strength of women, and they expressly said, "Watinta bafaz, watinta imbokodo, malibongwe." Gender mainstreaming is one instrument we cannot turn a blind eye to. I heard Honorable member from the DA talking about the failures of government, but I can understand he might be familiar with what we have been doing since 1994. Gender mainstreaming is one critical area which government has paid attention to since 1994, ensuring that in whatever we do, gender equality is at the center of this struggle. The establishment of the Women's Ministry is one other intervention that government has come up with, which is meant to be a voice of women and children, of women in particular, at a highest level. We have seen recently, over the past 4 weeks, how Minister Shabangu has taken a public stance and have supported families of victims and has pronounced unambiguously about government's commitment in assisting each and every family that is affected by violence. And we really sincerely thank our minister for her effort in this regard. She has shown the courage, she has shown the determination, and many communities are grateful for her stance. In terms of the UN's call, it's important to mention that since the call was made that all countries should embark on 16 days of activism against violence on women and children, South Africa has been in the forefront of that struggle year after year under the leadership of the ANC-led government. Again, when it comes to sustainable development goals, there is a resolve to make sure that SDG 5, which talks to achievement of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, which should be driven by member states, is at the center of all our departments. In terms of international instruments, some honorable members who are in doubt might not be aware that South Africa is already a signatory to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And that has positioned South Africa to learn from other countries as to lessons that could help to improve our situation. And in terms of the legislation, we have anchored the notion of gender equality. We have the Commission for Gender Equality, we have equality courts, sexual offences courts, family courts, and also the Domestic Violence Act. Government has done all of this to ensure people are held accountable and to send an unambiguous message that perpetrators of such heinous crimes will be held accountable. Strategic centers such as Tutuzela Center have been established using, of course, initially donor money for victim empowerment. Government has also invested in the training of officials within the criminal justice system to ensure proper implementation of our laws. Government will continue to intervene to assist the integrated criminal justice system so as to have greater impact. Our own analysis: poverty is a major cause of vulnerability to gender-based violence. Some of our young girls are led with promises of better economic and social opportunities to their detriment. We saw recently in the media that the brothels in the East Rand, where they've been set up where young children disguised as hairdressers, and they also get molested. Mothers who are economically independent are better equipped to support their children. Hence, in terms of the BBBE legislation, women inclusion has been elevated and is the item on its own. Just to touch on new strategic directions, the question is where are we going and what more needs to be done? There are interventions from different departments. Where I'm sitting as a Minister of Home Affairs, I'm working very hard towards the establishment of a border management authority, which I see as a critical intervention to ensure that even at our 72 points of entry, women and children are protected from violations and crimes such as human trafficking and abduction. And I hope members of the DA will ultimately understand the importance of border management, especially after this debate. The other related aspect that we are looking at is education and skills development
Honorable
initiatives.
Minister, your time has expired. The Honorable Robinson.
Honourable Speaker, today we are united in mourning the tragic loss of many women and children through brutal rape, violence and murder. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I wish to express my sincere condolences to all who have suffered loss. We as parliamentarians, and particularly the executive, should be taking the lead in trying to find solutions to this tragic situation, where the sanctity of life seems to mean nothing. In the words of Professor Amanda Gous, a former commissioner of the CGE, more political will is needed to transform the justice and policing system so that the horror of abuse can end. Members, let us today get the political will to address violence against women. Throughout the ages in our tumultuous history, South African women have been seen as brave and strong, supporting the struggle for freedom and independence. From the riveting account of a Zulu family set in 1879, Eyes in the Night tells of the battle of survival of families during the Zulu conflicts, to the women who bravely marched to the Union buildings in 1956, demanding their rights, to those who penned the Women's Charter in 1994 and wrote, "We, women of South Africa, claim our rights to full and equal participation in the creation of a non-sexist, non-racist democratic society." Yet women's subordination and oppression has taken many forms under patriarchy, custom, tradition, and racism. Oppression has continued unabated, as today we have to face the fact that women are brutally murdered and raped on a daily basis. Women should not have to live in fear, yet this has become the reality for every woman. Now, those brave activists who marched to the union buildings in 1956 chanting, Watinta Bafazi, Watinta Bakodo, have been reduced to a tame ANC Women's League, which kowtows subserviently to the patriarchal attitude of the big man, defending him before and during his rape trial when Kwezi, the daughter of his friend, had to submit to his sexual demands. Instead of standing up for the rights of women, the ANC Women's League mocked and derided others who supported her and eventually drove her out of the country. The once proud ANC Women's League has been reduced to the JZDL. The JZDL, the Jacob Zuma Defence League, instead of being victors of people of abuse. Tragic indeed. Last week, Minister Susan Shabangu made the shocking statement after the murder of Karabo Mokoena, saying that she was weak and hence became the victim of violence. How dare she say that to the grieving family when Karabo had been strong in reporting previous abuse and assisting in shelters to help other victims? I was at the court. I spoke to Karabo's broken and traumatized family. No parent should have to go through that anguish and then have an unsympathetic comment like that made by the Minister of Women, who's supposed to champion the cause of women. What about providing solutions, Minister? What about helping children to be prepared for life, to be able to discern psychological abuse? What about encouraging everyone to speak out and not remain silent when there is gender violence and abuse taking place within the home? Women are not weak, Minister. Our government is weak. We urge government to support programs for organizations like FAMSA, the Parent Centre, and Sonke Gender Justice, and to make them accessible to all so that our dysfunctional families and society can be healed. Unfortunately, our government has reduced the funding for many NGOs that are doing valuable work due to financial constraints. How about cutting down on your frequent visits to the very expensive Oyster Box, Minister Dlamini, and making more money available for NGOs and SASA grants? One also has to ask, what are the police and government doing to prioritize the safety of women? In many occasions, there are no J88 forms, rape kits available at police stations or clinics. At 189 police stations, there are no victim-friendly units for victims. Under a DA government, we will go back to basics. We will increase the visibility of SAPS with more patrols on the streets. We will encourage women to speak out and that women are no longer victimized when they approach police officers. The Victims' Charter needs to be prominently displayed. More FCS units, more Tutuzela centers. We believe in a country that values freedom, fairness, and opportunity. Woza 2019. Enkos.
Honorable Sope.
Ngiyabonga Somlomo. Somlomo udlame olubhekiswe kubantu besifazane nakubantwana kuyinto ekumele iqedwe nya ngazo zonke izindlela. Kulezi inyanga ezimbalwa ezedlule udlame nokuxhashazwa okubhekiswe kubantu besifazane kushiye lelizwe lididekile futhi lishaqekile. Imibiko ngezigameko zakamumva ziyathusa kakhulu lapho khona abantu besifazane bezithola beyizisulu zokubulawa ngenkulu indluzula nendlela enyentisayo. Lokho kukhomba ubulwane obungenisile emphakathini yakithi. Kuleli sonto kutholakale unkosazana Thembisile Yende efele ebulawele ehhovisi lakhe kwa-Eskom. Sekuphela amasonto amabili wonke enyamalele. Namanje asikazi ukuthi yini imbangela yokubulawa kwakhe. Izwe lisamangele lisalindele izimpendulo. May her soul rest in peace. Ngesonto lona leli siphuma kulo, Madam Speaker, unkosazane uNathi Madotsheni, who is 30 years old, utholakale ebulewe ngendlela ezihluku esibi kakhulu ekopolotwe namehlo. Waphinde wadlwengula khona la elokishini lakalanga. Emasontweni amabili edlule, Madam Speaker, ingane encane enezinyanga ezu-14 idlenguliwe yabulawa ubaba wayo oyizalayo khona la eKhayelitsha. Kodwa ubulwane obungaka buvelaphi na? KwaZulu Natal uSimangele Mthembu, uBongeka Phungula, uMbalenhle Macaba abavela kaXimba. Saphinde sabona noPopi Qwabi nabo bebulewe ngesikhulu isihluku. Lokhu ke kuyizinkomba zokuthi baningi abantu besifazane ababulawayo kodwa lelizwe belingakakutholi ukuthi konke kuhamba kanjani. Umzimba kaIyapha Yamile utholakale uciyiwe endlini encane kude buduze nasekhaya lakhe. Ngomhla ka-27 April kulonyaka unkosazane Karabo Mkwena wabulawa umuntu owayethu yamthanda maqede washisa umzimba wakhe owulahla ehlathini. Madam Speaker, lezi zigameko ke ezingenhla ezimbala kweziningi izehlakalo lapho abantu besifazane nezingane bezithola behlukunyezwa kakhulu. Kusho ukuthini ke ezweni lethu, Madam Speaker? 1, kusho ukuthi asinabo ubuholi ezweni lethu. UMinister of Women uyena ongabe uza nama plans okusprotect. Sikhuluma nje, Madam Speaker, akekho nala sizokhuluma ngodaba olubalekile lokuhlukunyezwa nokubulawa abantu besifazane. Kodwa akasibonanga isizathu sokuthi eze kuloluwiso mthetho azohlanganyela kanye nesizwe kulokhu okwenzakalayo. Okwesibili, Madam Speaker, uMinister of Women uhambe wathi eSoweto kukhona udevil odunguzayo ezweni. No, Minister, there is no devil. It's just because ANC is failing this country. The ANC is failing our women in this country. The ANC is not protecting our women in this country. Minister, there is no devil. The devil is whereby our police are not equipped enough to deal with the reported cases of abuse. When women go to report these cases, Minister, there is no devil, but only that they are not taken serious. When cases do finally get registered, they are not given the priority they deserve and are placed at the bottom of the dockets. No investigators are allocated to cases. If they do get allocated, this happens long after have been reported. That is not the end. Not long time ago, when a case go to the NPA and in front of the courts, women get subjected to further dehumanization when their sexuality get questioned, as was the case when the late Fezekile Kuzwayo, known as Kwezi, reported Mr. Jacob Zuma of having
Honorable
raped
member,
her.
your time is up. Thank you. Honorable Sengwa.
Ngiyathokoza uqoshithu wemhlonishwa sihlalo nginibingele nonke malunga ahloniphekile aleli parliament. On behalf of the IFP, I take this opportunity to convey our deepest condolences to all the families, friends and communities that have been affected by this scourge of violence against women and children and have in recent days and weeks lost their loved ones. It is our hope that the law enforcement agencies will do everything within their powers and within their responsibilities to ensure that the full might of the law is meted out to punish perpetrators and maybe use that as the first step of creating stronger deterrence against these terrible crimes against women and children. I stand here on behalf of all the bold men out there, particularly young men, who without any qualm say, "Not in my name." It is not in the character of men to do these things, not in the character of South Africans to do these things. And we need a moment of reflection to say, how did we arrive at this gutter of the world? Therefore, we congratulate young men like Kgothatso Mloto for rising up and leading campaigns like Stop Abuse. And I call on all members of this House who are available to support his call of action, who on the 11th of June in Orlando Stadium will be having a campaign and a march of young men to say, "Not in my name." The first government is the individual, it's the self. We need to inculcate those convictions and that consciousness in young people and in persons to say, this is not right. We need to correct the individual. Honorable House Chairperson, whilst programs like Take a Girl Child to Work are noble, but under the circumstances, it may be in our interest to actually take a child to work. raise young men, raise young women, so that we may be able to ensure that we raise the consciousness of both sexes, so that they may be able to understand that they are equal partners in the world. So we may be solving one problem of taking the girl child to work, but we are leaving the boy child behind. So whilst we empower women, we must also disempower men of their patriarchy. It may be a good time for us to revisit, the calls for a referendum on the death penalty, to indicate how serious we are about these things. Honorable House Chairperson, it may not be convention of this House to pray, but I was raised by a praying woman. And I just call on all those members who may feel comfortable that at this point in time, we pray for South Africa. Our Heavenly Father, may your hand of grace and mercy touch each and every one of us. Touch our hearts, touch our communities, protect us and protect our women. And may the spirit of goodness and love of which you so preached in all of us find expression in all that we do. We ask all of this in your name now and forevermore. Amen. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you also for that prayer. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members in this House, and our distinguished guests. Allow me on behalf of the National Freedom Party to express our condolences to the families of the deceased, especially all the girls that may have died as a result of being murdered or being sexually abused and assaulted and raped. Honorable Chairperson, as I start off here today, allow me to report that it has just come to my knowledge another 11-year-old girl has just been raped by a school janitor in the Cape Flats area today. Honorable Chairperson, South Africa is applauded locally and internationally for having produced one of the finest constitutions. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa guarantees freedom of movement. The question is, what freedom as we South Africans are able to move around freely in the length and breadth of the country? The answer is no. The Constitution guarantees protection for women and children. What protection? Our children are raped, abducted, and murdered every day. With some of them, the shocking statistics is that there were 42,596 women that were raped last year alone, and 15,790 children alone were raped last year. Honorable Chairperson, 19 children were raped and or murdered in the last 4 months in the city of Cape Town alone, with the city of Cape Town having some of the worst statistics, including one of the worst precincts for sexual offenses in 2,111 offenses. With the city of Cape Town once again in the Western Cape identified one of the worst 10 precincts in the ill treatment of children. Statistics dictate that the child is born in, that the child has a greater chance in South Africa, 400% greater chance of being raped than rather getting education in South Africa. That is the true reflection of what is happening. Honorable Chairperson, when South Africa, after 1994, the democratic election, there were already 19,000 rapes a year that were being reported. And that was as a result of the apartheid regime and having put our people to live in areas where they separated us and you were not able to live. Honorable Chairperson, let me add that there are between 26 to 30 rape cases reported in the Paro police station in the city of Cape Town, and 10 to 15 per week in the Belleville police station alone. Honorable Chairperson, the National Freedom Party believes it's time to relook at the Constitution, call for a referendum on the death penalty and castration of those responsible for the rape of our children. Honorable Chairperson, it is time, 23 years later, to look at the Constitution and see what amendments that we need to make. One may argue that is barbaric, but is it barbaric for an innocent to lose his life as a result of the criminal activities? Let me also add, Honorable Chairperson, the problem we have in the system is the problem of the legal system would protect the criminals where the legal aid is provided to these criminals. So, Honorable Chairperson, the National Freedom Party is calling for a referendum on the death penalty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable members, I understand the temperatures at times rise, but I don't think when statistics, either by one region or the other, in the manner in which I listened to the debate, had an inference on anybody. It was just to highlight the extent of the problem. Honorable Member Nkwankwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister Mteto, ndiyabona seniqedile with that extended ANC branch meeting which took place earlier.
Order,
House
that's not
Chair
part of
and
the
honorable
debate.
members, the United Democratic Movement joins the millions of South Africans in declaring violence against women and children, in particular the girl child, a crime against humanity. Kwabo babhubhileyo sifuna uyibeka ngesintu sithi tutwini akuhlanga lungehlanga makabenze uThixo balale ngoxolo abakhanyisele ngokhanyiso olungacimiyo. As a nation, we must not tolerate violence against women and children. We must do everything in our power to prevent it, address its root causes, and to mobilize civil society against it. However, as we do this, we need to be cognizant of the fact that violence against women and girl children is rooted in gender-based discrimination and on social and cultural norms that shape gender roles and the unequal distribution of power between men and women in society. We therefore need to work together with leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, and traditional leaders to eradicate the social norms and traditions as well as religious beliefs which tolerate and sometimes even legitimize discrimination and violence against women and children. We must intensify community mobilization programs through our traditional forms of communication in the mainstream media. Since most of our young people access information via social media, it is important that the social media constitutes a critical part of this communication strategy. In this regard, the Not In My Name campaign by men that has men taking collective responsibility for ending violence against women and children must be intensified and should be part of our daily lives. From a legal perspective, the prevention and eradication of violence against women and children requires that we implement all the laws that deal with sexual offenses and violence against women and children, and make sure that we impose harsh punishment on those who abuse our women and children. We must also implement all the legislative measures that seek to ensure the protection and removal of all forms of discrimination against and the empowerment of women and women with disabilities and the girl child. More importantly, law enforcement agencies must be taught to handle cases of gender-based violence with the sensitivity they deserve. There must be a concerted drive to ensure that the girl child enjoys full and equal access to quality education and that government provides all the necessary support required to ensure that girl children remain focused on their development. To increase awareness and assist in the fight against the abuse of women and children, all political parties should include in their membership declaration forms, which members sign when they take up membership with them, a clause that denounces violence against women and children. However, as we undertake all these initiatives, we should never lose sight of the fact that the foundation of any society is the family. In the long term, it is this broken foundation that we must work hard to fix. Siyabulela. Nkosi kakhulu.
Honorable Groenewald.
Agbare voorsitter, daar word verskeie voorstelle gemaak in terme van die geweld wat tans teen vrouens en kinders plaasvind. Ek wil eintlik vir u sê, die feit dat ons so 'n debat vandag in die parlement moet hê, is niks anders as 'n klad op die naam van die gemeenskap van Suid-Afrika. Want vroue en kinders moet eintlik, soos hulle sal sê, eintlik sag behandel word met liefde en met respek. En dit gaan vir my ook oor selfrespek. Want as jy respek het vir jouself as 'n man, dan sal jy ook respek hê vir vroue en vir kinders. Wat sê die Zulu koning, en ek haal aan uit die staar van 30 Mei. The Zulu king said as follows, it was time that women turned the tables on the abusive men in their lives and gave them a good hiding. King Goodwill's Valentini believes. And given the chance, the king said he would eradicate the abuse against women and children in just a month. Zwelithini used the 1959 raids on beer halls in Kaito Manor as an example of women taking action against abusive men. The men and I quote, "The men did not listen to the women and got thrashed." Close quote, he said. He said the men had lost their way and women had to take it upon themselves to straighten things out. Nou, agbare voorsitter, President Zuma yesterday said that the women should report domestic violence and the cases to the police. But that is exactly where the problem is, or one of the problems. Because we have cases where women went to police stations, report domestic violence, and that they have been raped, and they are then were put in cells and raped by the police. And that is why women are sometimes afraid to go to the police station to report crime. And I know the Honourable Minister will respond. And I know he will come and say very vigorously, but they must report. And there will be trouble with the policemen if they don't listen to them. Well, Chairperson, my solution is that we should all go back to our communities and start to show respect. I want to say, respect, 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 because only respect will solve the problem. And that is an obligation to each and every one of us. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Carter.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, South Africa continues to be plagued by unacceptable high levels and outrageous, brutal forms of violence against its women. And the unfortunate reality is that where women are unprotected, children are equally at risk. To assist, we urgently need a dedicated SABC channel broadcasting details of missing women and children, the likes of an old police file. Our police must investigate cases of missing women and children, any person missing, as soon as the matter is reported, and there should not be a waiting period of 24 hours. We need to ask, why does South African society suffer from such extraordinary violent crimes, despite a world-renowned constitution underpinned by a comprehensive Bill of Rights and a legislative overhaul that safeguards women and children's rights in law? Why are women and children subjected to such brutality? According to the Institute of Race Relations, the answer lies in the breakdown of our families. According to the Institute, the antisocial, violent and destructive behavior we see relates to weak family structures, and that the fabric of our country will only ever be healed if we learn to build better and stronger bonds. The values of a family and what constitutes a functional family unit needs to be inculcated and promoted amongst our youth within our schooling system in the precursor to adulthood. The migratory labour system broke the back of our family structure as well. It resulted in the destruction of family and social relations, including changes to custom and beliefs and general ways of living. Thus, as society began to urbanize, the family dysfunctionality of absent fathers and female-headed households continued. An intervention is required to revive the family nucleus and the family as the nucleus of society. A similar intervention is required in the upbringing of our boys. They must be sensitized and taught to respect the rights of women. Data suggests that South Africa is a source, transit and destination country for women subjected to forced labor and sex trafficking. But this week, a group of thugs dressed in Mr. Price MK gear chanted "Hands off Zuma," gathered in violent intimidation outside the residence of Solly Mbhele. Inside was Solly's 3-year-old daughter and live-in nanny. At the same time, another group of thugs are camped outside the home of Patriot Makosi Khoza's home, threatening her and her children's lives. We can't help but draw a parallel to that what Kwezi was treated, how gangs of thugs violently intimidated, abused, hounded, hurled abuse at Kwezi, how supporters of Mr. Zuma burned down her home and shouted, and I quote, "burn the bitch," how she had to flee her motherhood, seek asylum. When women protesters were violently manhandled at the AIC Rock, a room full of leaders did nothing.
Honourable Member,
Currently,
your time
Chairperson, there is 53 people in the ANC benches.
Honourable Member,
When you strike a woman,
Dudley.
you rock. What in Tiabafazi, what in Tiabakoda?
Honorable Dudley. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To eradicate violence against women and children, too often in the form of sexual violence and often resulting in the death of the victims, one must address the root causes and not merely the symptoms. As we have seen in the past weeks, no one in society is immune. It devastates and destroys without discriminating on any basis. One of the root causes and drivers of sexual violence is sexual exploitation of women, which takes many forms, including prostitution, sex trafficking, and pornography. If we are serious about eradicating violence against women and children, we cannot be lax about eradicating the production and distribution of pornography in our society. Government policy to date is that children must be protected from exposure to pornography, but that adults should be able to view what they want. Now, the inherent problem, however, is that the consequences that is acting out in sexual violence in response to exposure to pornography is not mainly perpetrated by boys, but rather men, male persons, age 18 and older. According to Pornhub.com, one of the largest hardcore pornography video sharing websites in the world, South Africa is in their top 20. In addition, South Africa has the highest percentage in the world for accessing hardcore pornography via a mobile device. Many studies by respected researchers have found that the more men view media where women are treated as objects rather than as people, the more they thought that women really were merely things that existed to sexually please men. In addition, more men think of women as objects, and the more they also support violence against women. This is serious research. An analysis of recent data on pornography use and sexual violence from 22 studies in 7 different nations found that pornography use and acts of sexual aggression are directly connected, and that this connection holds true for both men and women, and for verbal and physical aggression. Now, after viewing over 500 studies to determine whether consumption of pornography caused gender-based violence, Dr. Max Waltman of Stockholm University concluded that the weight of the evidence is clear and that available research shows that pornography causes gender-based violence through most every methodology imaginable. In conclusion, as Parliament considers how to address the scourge of violence against women and children, especially sexual violence against women and girls, and as the PC on Communications considers the Films and Publications Amendments Bill's proposals to decriminalise or legalise the online distribution of pornography in South Africa, the ACDP once again pleads for proper consideration of the root causes. When asked how to improve the conditions in pornography for women, Noam Chomsky replied, "Just like child abuse, you don't want to make it better child abuse, you want to stop the child abuse." So,
Thank you, Honorable Member. Your time is up.
I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Masango.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Ngicela ukubuye ngithathe leli thuba ukuzwelana nemindeni, abazali kanye nezihlobo zalabo abasishiyile ngokuhlukunyezwa esizwa ngako ezindabeni kulelizwe ngalesikhathi samanje. The atrocious abuse of women and children has been covered widely with staggering statistics and anecdotes of untold brutality hogging headlines as the country tries to come to terms with this scourge. Some cases have even secured slots in court rolls and perpetrators having their days in court. This is showing that something is being done, although it is way too late for the victims, most of whom lose their lives, and for families who have to pick up the pieces of their lives with the loss of their loved ones. There are stories that never reach the media, stories whose impact on the lives of those close to these tragedies is unimaginable. At the center of these stories are women and children, women because they lose their children, and children because they lose their mothers. During a march I attended, Chairperson in Temba, Hammanskraal, this last Sunday, I came face to face with a picture of the trail of abuse. On the program was Doreen Carlo, a mother who had lost her daughter in 2011. Doreen had in her possession a worn-out green plastic bag that contained a letter her daughter had written before she died, days before she died, a document with a case number and a letter from an authority absolving itself from responsibility of bringing the perpetrator to book. The contents of this bag were not just papers, but they detailed a harrowing tale of a mother who lost her child to senseless violence. Doreen reached out to the police, but they failed her. She reached out to the prosecuting authorities, and again she was failed. In her quest for justice, Doreen was failed by the very system that was meant to protect her, and indeed her daughter. She received no counseling and was forced to bear the grief on her own. The moment she started speaking, tears streamed down her face. She wanted to share her grief, her anger, and her sadness with the marchers who had come to stand with her and others like her. Her pain and anguish permeated through the crowd and seemed to be as fresh as though she had lost her daughter yesterday. Yet, in between her heart-wrenching sobs, Doreen's strength and resilience as a mother shone through as she said, "I will not stop fighting for my girl." This is the message that needs to resonate with all of us today. We cannot and will not stop fighting for our mothers, our sisters, and our children. As the Democratic Alliance, we will not stop to call on government to take the responsibility and implement its own plan of action to protect the lives of women and children. What has happened, Chairperson, to the government's integrated program of action for violence against women and children, which was developed by an interministerial committee? Despite it being lauded from policy perspective, when it came to implementation, the plan was, however, criticized because, first of all, it was not costed. How then could it be taken seriously without the necessary budget? The fact that the country is still experiencing heightened levels of violence against women and children calls into question the government's ability to perform one of its most fundamental functions, and that is to protect its citizens. What then has gone wrong, Chairperson? Are we continuing to put the lives of women and children at risk while we develop documents that are launched and never implemented? Are we paying lip service at the expense of lives that are being lost on a daily basis? As the DA, we will endeavor to empower the vulnerable and give voice to the voiceless. Our vision for South Africa is one which seeks to build a society that values the humanity inherent in all women, in all men, in all children. Thank you, Chairperson.
Enkosi ilungu elihloniphekile, ndizawucela ke ngoku ilungu elihloniphekile umama uChapha Mafako.
Sihlalo wendlu zidwesha nani zidwangube maqobokazana athi angalala emzini kufithokazi inkosi mazole ngoba nezicaka zizolile sendithobile nyukani mnandehle igama lami lenkobe ndinguzoleka uMafako inkosazana yapha emampondweni lengquza ligama lamelo kodwa ndinegama lekawe negama lesikolo kuthiwa nguLozimeli andikwazi kulibiza kahle ke ngoba alolwimi lamolo ndalunikwa ngozendi esikolweni kwathiwa ke ndize ndihlale ndibize eli likaLozimeli mandivula umlomo kule ngxoxo mpikiswano ngelivumayo ukuba bonke abantu abathethileyo kule mpelaveki kuquka nendlu le emela amaphondo oMzantsi Afrika bathethe kakhulu ngalomba bazibeka namanani ezinto ezenzekileyo nendlela ezenzeke ngayo akuzufuneka kuba ndiphinde ezo zinto ndibe ndifaka ityiwe ezilondini into endiza kuyenza ngoku nonomathotholo bazamile nabacholacholi bendaba nabaphixothi bezopolitiko beyikhangela lemeko ikhungethe ilizwe lethu yobugqwirha nobungqondo gqwirha Into ebendikhana ukuyenza ke ngoku sihlalo kukuba ndibe nombuzo. Lo mbuzo ngumbuzo buciko ngoba uzawufuneka ndibuze ndibuye ndiphendule. Lo mkhwa oludushe lujoliswe kubantwana bethu ingaba na uze kanjani? Lento yokunxanelwa igazi lemveku, lento yokubona imveku njengabantu ekungabelwana nabo ngesondo, lento yokubulawa kwamaxhegwazana kuba kuthiwa yathakatha kutshiswe nemizi yabo, inoba ifike nini? Lento yokuba nabantu abaselulanyana sebekwazi ukulala ngaphandle kwasekhaya bengabaxelelanga abazali. Kude kwafika nethuba lokuba bade bahlale kwezi ndawo banezithandani kungabangakho lobolo nazivumelwano phakathi kwabazali, ngoba kaloku umuntu unamakhaya amabini. Nxa ubethiwe indoda yakho yakwini ubatyela ubukubethile igweke ikhupha inkomo. Ewe injalo, kaloku babayazi ubinjalo. Watsho wandikhumbuza ngani na? Bachitha lo masiko kanye. Beza le ndawo ndithetha ngayo yile yenziwe yicolonialism. Andifuni ukuthi ngathi sihlalo broken record, ndiphinda idamage eyenziwe yinkqubo yobukoloniali. Besizihlalele apha kweli lizwe kungekho dushe, mhla kubhoka incukuthwe ekhaya nilale phandle ningenziwa nto. Nxa uvele etyalweni uhambe noba kukukhala kwenkukhu kuhambe kukhonkotha izinja unqangaza umculo ungazi kwenziwa nto. Intombi zethu bezinyuka zisehla zingenziwa nto ngoba nxa uke wayiphatha usengxakini. Apha kudala saphila kuqala singena rhulumente ngoba urhulumente owayekhona wayengengorhulumente wethu. Saphila kanjani? Zazikhona inkosi, babekhona abantu abadala, lwalukhona ulutsha ilulo olugada ilali. Ikomkhulu belijongwe njengomzi. Bezisonjululwa njani jola ingxaki xa engekho amapolisa azawubamba abantu? Bekuhlalwa phansi xa kukho into edlumzi. Abafazi bathi nqwadalala phaya, amadoda athoba intloko, kudliwe ingcingane, kuxoxwa ngento edlumzi. Kwakungekho mntu mdala kuthiwa ligqwirha, kwakungekho mntu udlwengula intombazana, yayingaphathwa ngesandla, xa udibene nawe uyayikhapha uyigoduze. Nxa ukhana ukukuxela ucela uthando kuyo uyakowayo. Mhla yakuvuma kuphakanyiswa amabhiza kuthi usibani bani uvuma ubani ukwenzela uba ungade bavume babe baninji. Okwesibini, loo nto yaloo nkululeko ibisenza into yokokuba nxa uhambe nomntu wakho kwaziwe uba uhambe naye uzobuyiswa nguye. Namhlanje akho mntu uhamba nomnye ngoba akufuneki aziwe uba ummolo wakho uhamba nabani. Okwesibini, noko intombi ebinomntu wangakwini bekungathi na ubuyithanda uyikhusele ngoba bekukhona ukunyaniseka. Yi-pre-colonial le ndixela ngayo. Bekugcwele ukudla apha, sizingela inyamakazi sidle. Kwavele kwafika umntu wazenza ezakhe, wazibiyela, wazithengisa, wazisesilarheni inyamakazi. Nditsho mna nogwaja nemivundla. Ubabona ababantu bafike sihlala sinemithi bayibiyela bayenze yabo kwathiwa lihlathi labo bathina masithenge kubo. Yebethuni, ndithetha mna ngalento ye-colonial era uba sesiyokhana ukuyosebenza emigodini nje zasidla sihluthi iziqhamo zemithi, zasidla sihluthi intlanzi zelwandle zethu, sasilima kubekho ukudla sisenga inkomo sidla amasi, sasivuna inyosi emahlathini kwavele kwafika abantu abathi nxa beyovuna inhlanzi baphathe into enkulu ekuthiwa yinethi bawole inhlanzi ezalayo nebizelwe izolo uba kungabi sakho kwanqubela phambili. Yabona le ndlela le yokuthi kuxoxwa ngesimo soba abantwana bethu banje nyani ngoba kwachithwa amakhaya. Ukhona omnye unkosikazi oyishilo lento ayisho ngesingesi wathi hayi homes are broken. Zizongabi broken kanjani nxa kuthiwa indoda ngapha mayishona eGoli umfazi atshone le yedwa ugawule ehlathini. Zonke izinto zenza umntwana abe akanancedwa akhuka kumandanga ekhaya. Abantu abamnyama yinto abayazi ukukhusela abantu abadala abantu abangomama insane ulutsha ngumsebenzi walo ukukhusela abantu balo. Lonto ibingabizi simaphoyisa kukhona abantu komkhulu ekuthiwa ngonogazi ekuhlalwa phansi kuthethwa uthiwa makubizwe amaphoyisa ngoba lo muntu uchithile igazi azomthatha amaphoyisa befuneka uba abizwe ngabantu ngoba abantu benendlela yabo yokuphila. Kuthiwa ngoku lo rhulumente ka-ANC makangene ezindlini bawulala kanjani abantu amaphoyisa lapha ngoba funeka agade le ndoda ingabulali lo mfazi wayo. Ukhona umonakalo kule ndlela asiqhutywa ngayo ngoba eyona nyaniso yileyo nto kokuba senziwe sangabi nabuntu. Senziwe into yokokuba singabi nankosi namkhokheli silindele into yoba xa kukho umonakalo makubizwe untlalontle ayapha amaxhego namaxhegwazana lelali. Ndinemizekelo ephilayo ngoba ngoku umuntu ubukwamithisa umfazi womntu kudutyulwa lo mfazi le ndoda idubulele imithisa umfazi yona izidubule. Kanti kwakuthi xa ngaba kukho umonakalo lolo hlobo ahlala amadoda athi inqwadalala athobisa inhloko atsala icuba kuthiwe izamfowam ukhona umonakalo kodwa likhona ichiza. Umakoti makakagoduke asazalele ekhaya amthiye khona umntwana nawe khawukuzama uyohlamba umzwala ndoda kwenziwe icleansing kube khona icounseling kungabikho umuntu unhlala nehostility revenge ngoba abantu abadala bebehlelele lonto. Mandingena apha embizweni phaya komkhulu likhaya labantu yiyo lento kuthiwa yimizi nemizana. Ukomkhulu likhaya ngumzi apho xa ubethi uya khona. Namhlanje ufuneka uyobekwa le entweni ekuthiwa white door anoba yi-green door enye uhlala apho wedwa apho ngosuka komkhulu kumane kuzothiwa lusapho lukasibani bani kungaba kwenzeke ntoni. Make sibabize sibakhwebe abantu babelungiswa izimilo hayi ubumvalele ngapha ejele angene kolacango lu-revolve kuthiwa itshubile ixesha ligwetyiweyo ayophuma ngale afika aphinde adliwe ngulomnye aphinde abuye. Mayibuye iAfrika ibuye nento zayo yonke le nto yokuba kube ngathi kufuneka amaphoyisa ayikho loo nto.
Honorable Jafta.
Thank you, Chairperson. In 1956, our flag bearers in the persons of
Order,
Lillian
honorable
Ngoyi,
members.
Helen Joseph, Dora Tamana, Meki Khesha, and many others set the tone quite pointedly against women violence and subjugation. They were the leading organizers of the march of 20,000 women to the Union Building to hand over a petition against the extension of passes to women. The current scourge of abuse and violence against women is an obliteration of their legacy and quest for women liberty and justice. The very essence and pretext of gender rights find expression in our collective agency to tailor the rights of women against past prejudice, inequality, and gender discrimination. The AIC calls upon the criminal justice system to fast-track the reported cases of women and child abuse. This will go a long way in deterring the escalating amount of violence and abuse to women and children. Lest we forget that women are our national assets and treasures. We should embrace their dexterity, their craft, their innocence, their beauty, their perfect imperfections, and their unfailing love. Honorable Chair, we are therefore saddened that the fight against women and child abuse has hit rock bottom. This is neatly articulated by the gender justice movement, which wrote the following on this subject. I quote, "South Africa's femicide rate is 5 times higher than the global average. A woman is killed every 8 hours by the intimate partner," close quote. The brutal killing of Karabo Mokoena is a stark reminder that our society is still predisposed towards violence. We pay our deepest commiserations to all the families that bore the brunt of these social ills. The AIC condemns this scourge in the strongest possible terms. We appeal to the government to work tirelessly to harness its national strategic plan on the gender-based violence. Honorable Chair, we propose that initiatives geared towards molding young men
Order, honorable
should be
member.
part of the
Your
national
time is up.
strategic plan. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Pluama.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members. Karabo Mokoena, River Steenkamp, my words are empty. I fear those moments when you met your final hours. Your lives were not in vain. You left us empty, but with the resolve to fight this terrible scourge. Honorable members, violence against women and children has reached an epidemic proportions. It seems as if society has declared war against women and children. Many in this country have commodified women. What kind of a society is this when babies are raped regularly? What kind of a society is this when women are raped, we blame her choice of clothes? Honorable members, I want to ask men, why are they using sexual violence as an instrument of gender domination? Some men with their distorted minds will even tell you that she was asking for it. We need a serious awareness campaign to rid men of this patriarchal baggage. Some marriages have become a prison. To some women, relationships have become battlegrounds. Honorable members, we must change this cultural environment that tolerates and encourages male dominance. Families must stop coercing women to stay in abusive relationships. Domination of women by men is at the root of all violence. Furthermore, we need to invest on how men should handle their anger, teaching men that women are not objects or items on shelves, but human beings with free minds, independent to choose their own destiny. When women decide to accept you in their lives as lover or husband, you are not owning them, they have not sold their freedom. We must treat them as equal partners. Even when they choose to end relationship, we must respect them. Communities must always prioritize helping women and children. They should make it their own business. We should not sleep or make it normal when we hear screams of women or children battered by their fathers or husbands. A society we strive for is a society that protects its own children and women. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Waters.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, the Honourable Sheikh Imam mentioned the horrific attacks of rape on children in the Western Cape in particular. And as he would know, the competency of policing and justice is a national competency, not a provincial one. But if he would like to assist us in getting it devolved down to provincial level, we would welcome that, because we would like to have control of the police in the Western Cape. So thank you for that, Honourable Sheikh. Chair, I would like the members of the House to think back to their last birthdays and think about the following. What colour underwear were you wearing on your birthday? What time and in what sequence did you receive your presents? Who gave you a kiss and who shook your hand to wish you happy birthday? How many of you can answer these questions correctly? Probably no one in this House, if we're all honest. But we expect children aged 2, 3, and 4 years old to remember what colour underwear they were wearing on the day they were raped. We expect them to remember what time of the day it was, and we expect them to remember in what sequence the rape took place. This, honourable members, on a day that was not a happy occasion, such as a birthday, but a day that they all wish to forget. Now picture this. Imagine a small child trying to answer these same 3 questions some 2 years later in a courtroom. Because that is the length of time it takes, on average, for child abuse cases to reach completion in our courts, if they ever get there. Chair, I've quoted from a speech that I made in this House on the 15th of October, 2002, some 15 years ago. And I wanted to highlight the fact that nothing has changed in 15 years. We have these debates every single year, we do, and yet nothing happens. There's no political will coming from the government to change the situation. In fact, what happened about 10 years ago, you destroyed all the centres of excellence. You closed down all the FCS units. You closed down all the sexual offences courts. And that was your response to a national emergency. You closed everything down. You have, granted, done a U-turn since then, but we don't have the same number of FCS units or specialised courts that we had before today. We don't have them, and their skills have evaporated. So, Chair, what we've got to do is stop having talk shops on the abuse of women and children and start putting money where our mouths are. And it's high time that we need to see action from the ANC government in this regard. Because for failure to do so, we're going to be failing another generation. And I don't want to be standing here another 15 years' time giving the same speech. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Chairperson, honourable members, masculinity at the expense of women and children is not manly. This can't continue in our name. Yesterday, we were at the NCOP over this very issue. We declared we have no time to waste time. We have no time to waste time whilst our children live in terror. We have no time to waste time. We have no time for politics. We are faced with a serious matter that has engulfed our nation. Whilst others are politicking, we are rolling our sleeves for a serious job to be done. I've directed the over 200,000 law enforcement family to be wide-eyed on the beat and in whatever they are doing to work tirelessly to aggressively eradicate all crimes against women and children. I want to assure South Africans and the world that crimes against vulnerable groups are my top priority, focus, and will be expanding thousands of overtime hours on this. To women, girls, mothers, grannies in Bogoto, I stand here to tell you, indeed, enough is enough. It has been enough for centuries. We have lost too many. We have scarred too many. It's a shame to be a man these days. I have no doubt that the House joins me in sending our united deepest condolences to the victims. survivors and their loved ones at this time. Your pain is our pain. We walk in shame for what befalls you. Crimes against little girls, infants, and women are cowardice. Chairperson, as we raise our voices high, this requires us to effect not just rhetoric, but certain practical changes. For example, we shall ensure that female victims receive the legal, medical, social, psychological help they need, and that police and court processes be made as tolerable as possible. The South African Police Service is focused upon improved training, specialist police, and visible policing. This is where effective change could be implemented. Chairperson, it is currently taking place at heightened pace. We have no time to waste time. Our communities have rightly criticized the police for reluctance to interfere in domestic disputes, and in particular, for their reluctance to arrest and prosecute the perpetrators of the domestic violence. I want to make it clear today that domestic violence is not to be treated lightly. Violence against children, girls and boys, is totally intolerable. And I assure the children and women watching at home that we are doing everything to protect you and keep you safe from criminals. The traditional unequal power relations between men and women is now unconstitutional. Our past that a man had power over his wife, including the complete control over her property and of her daily affairs, is history. Women and girls are not male property, full stop. This warped notion that a woman could be a man's property instilled in another idea that a husband had the right to administer physical punishment to his wife. Female victims of this domestic violence often retract their police reports or suffer from the inside due to concern over the male breadwinner going to jail. This compounds this cancer into emotional and financial violence against our women. Rape and assault, domestic violence and child abuse have remained unconnected to other areas of criminal victimization. Today, we declare that ubudlwembe obu. If you beat your girlfriend, wife, or partner, ungutsotsi, I will just say, we are coming for you, tsotsi, you cowards, weak men. Madam Chair, I want to reiterate a clear message to police management to supplement their operating procedures on crimes against women, children, and the lesbian and gay community, and post in writing on all community police the following 6 points. 1, all victims should be interviewed by a trained specialist police officer. Globally, SABC has the second largest female police personnel after Norway. So as we fast track the training of specialist police, female police officers should conduct the victims' interviews. 2, where possible, the interview should be at a location other than a police station, if the police station does not have a private rooms. 3, medical examinations should always be carried out at a location other than a police station. 4, all victims should be given the option of an examination and evidence collection by a woman police surgeon. 5, only experienced police officer should be assigned to conduct the investigation. 6, all victims of sexual offenses, femicide and infanticide with their loved ones should be referred to victim support. Honorable members, I've also tasked my office to work with our counterparts to urgently evaluate the viability of having infanticide, femicide, and all domestic violence made special category crime. An assault on a woman must carry a heavier sentence than just a common assault charge. The offense of rape, femicide, and infanticide particularly is surrounded by strong feelings and insensitive interviewing of a victim, already humiliated and degraded, may cause further trauma. We must not re-humiliate nor re-victimize the victims. While some allegations of rape may be false, all investigations must commence on the premise that the complainant is a genuine victim. Police and community should not be courts of law. Courts are the only centers to pronounce on guilty or not guilty. Madam Chair, our community neighbors and families must not hide behind the shame of domestic violence. I want to encourage South Africans to report any suspicion of domestic abuse. And remember always that each domestic beating is a potential murder. Each domestic sexual abuse of a child is a potential rape and infanticide. Report imidlwembe in your community. We have no time to waste time. To end femicide, we need to end impunity, bring perpetrators to justice, and every individual has to change his or her attitude towards this being just a domestic issue. The criminal justice system is ready to exercise due diligence to prevent, investigate, prosecute, and punish the perpetrators. Together we must lock them up. Together we will oppose bail or demand hard bail conditions thereof. The killing of females because they are females threatens our national security by having a majority section of our population living in fear. It destroys gender balance, economic progress and harmony. Rape, femicide, infanticide, and gender-based violence are henceforth regarded by my office as fundamental threat to national security. And I instruct the police to deal with it in that manner as a priority crime. Women and children's rights are human rights too. Honorable Mbhele, when proposing this SNAP debate, referred to the scourge of violence against women and children. This government agrees with him, except we also recognize that the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer rights are human rights too. All these killings and abuse are a dishonor to our democracy. Perpetrators defile the ground we work on. The ANC government is absolutely committed to doing everything it can to stop violence against our precious demographics. To achieve the objective, the government will devote resources, funding, but most importantly, we have the political will to fight Lamagwala. Police will oppose all bail related to domestic violence. Honorable members, television is widely watched and a very influential medium across all people in South Africa today. There are over 12 million television sets switched on in South Africa daily. Its impact is far-reaching many of the most popular TV programs. With the highest viewership ratings, reinforce the patriarchal manpower-wielding customs, portrayal of women in a bad light or as witches, and so on. These violent images against women, the reinforcement of witchcraft as a real thing. I address this message to the creative industry. The portrayal of women and children as sex objects, TV drama genre is tired and contributes to making certain acts appear acceptable to some. Write screenplays that encourage respect and love for women and girl children. Promote harmonious lifestyle that accept lesbian and gay community. Females must be promoted as valuable. Let us denounce patriarchy and pedophiles. Together we must isolate them. We have no time to waste time. Iskati sidliwe in jabantu bagwetu. Teachers of schools and preschools must be vigilant and report any suspicion of abuse on children. Not reporting crime is a crime. Teachers must not abuse children. The country places on their care. Each domestic beating is a potential murder. I am fully cognizant that these crimes know no class, but many of the raped or murdered women and children come from the most marginalized sectors of society. Police are instructed to pay particular attention to these groups in their crime profiling and prevention strategies. Communities are doubly encouraged to participate in their community policing forums and other community-based activities. The police will reinforce its multi-sectoral approach to prevent this national shame and global problem. This multi-sectoral approach will also deal with factors that contribute heavily to crimes, which are poverty, inequality, and unemployment. We must not lose sight of the fact that police alone can't solve crime. Poverty must be eliminated. Inequality, economic inequality between races and gender must be eliminated. Honorable members, we need a radical economic transformation now. In my lifetime, in our lifetime, We have no time to waste time. Land access for social housing and substance must be part of our crime strategy. Madam Chair, the executive led by President Zuma has visited the bereaved in and across South Africa. Our people want us to shut illegal shippings down, and we will shut down drug houses, and we will. And they are demanding we pay attention to minibus taxi drivers, the vulnerability of females using this mode of transport. Some of these taxis are crime scenes on wheels. Our people are asking for land to build safe homes for themselves, to reduce overcrowded shack dwellings. They complain that bail is given too easily, that some of our police collaborate with gangs. Our people want more social workers in their communities, not more police. They want safe sports fields and safe transport for children to school. We have heard you. We agree with you. Siyeza Naguni. Instead of finger pointing, political parties are encouraged to participate in government programs, in their own programs, in their own political parties, to conscientize their own members, to encourage vigilance of communities, encourage that each community should have a community policing forum. These crimes are not performed by members of a particular party, but by society here. We cannot afford cheap political scoring over such an evil and dark crime, often done in hiding. Let us teach our boys that they are because women are. In our African culture, we have Inkosi and Inkosikazi. Inkosi is a king. This makes women our queens. We value our queens in Africa. Together we must isolate criminals. We have no time to waste time. Police are not authorized to negotiate with women beaters or child molesters. Read them their rights and do the right thing. Do not negotiate with a thug that thinks the lesbian gay community is his to harass and murder. Witch hunters, those who murder innocent women from suspicion of witchcraft, you have a new witch in town, I'm coming for you. SABC is going back to basics. Let us tighten those dockets. Oppose bail as a matter of course. We will soon launch a public campaign. Listen, we will soon launch a public campaign to educate, activate, and sensitize all role players and society over this scourge. Let not this time be lost to rhetoric, to hashtags, but real action. Let us not have meaningless, feel-good hashtags, as we saw with hashtag Joseph Kony or hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. Joseph Kony is still a free madman. Our girls are not all returned. In our streets, there is Courtney, Tobile, Karabo, and Mary, too many to think of. And it is our duty as society, as all political parties, irrespective, to fight the scourge of violence against women, to bring about order, to conscientize ourselves, to ensure that society do take part and is conscientized on the fight against violence against women. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Honourable Chairperson.
Order. Yes, Honourable Member.
I didn't want to interrupt the Minister while he was speaking, but I was just wondering, such an important debate today, is there any specific reason why the interpreter and sign language interpretation is not working?
Well, we'll follow up and check. I wouldn't know seated here what could have been the problem. We would like to thank members for their participation in this debate. And once again, as presiding officers, we want to also extend our condolences to those families who have lost their loved ones. That concludes the debate and the business for the day. The House is adjourned.